before the break, Dr. Washington was saying sometimes we have a tendency to feel guilty about being joyful during a tragic situation. Like right now, America's, we dealing with our generational curses right now, I like to call them. So how do, especially, let me just say this, how do white people not be guilty right now?
So it's important that we recognize as human beings, we can have more than one feeling at the same time. And sometimes when we feel guilty for celebrating our wins, we think that that means we are not mindful or sorrowful about all of the losses. But to give ourselves space and permission for all of it, if you receive some good news, if you've been working for something and a door opens, for us to really operate in gratitude and appreciation, because one of the things we have learned within COVID is not taking things and people for granted. And so to be able to celebrate those wins is really to operate from a place of appreciation. I want to say in terms of your question where it relates to white guilt, it's about if you get stuck in your guilt, then you are not doing anything to make things better. But instead, if you have had an awareness about the issues that are happening, about the realities of racism, to instead of breaking down, shutting down in guilt, to be mobilized, to engage, to become anti-racist. That is what is needed. And when we talk about the work of allies, that's what can make a difference. And I just want to say that even though we're talking about joy, for some people, it's just a simple decision. But some of you who are listening may be dealing with depression or PTSD. And so it's not just a matter of like shaking it off or choosing to be joyful. And so if you are open to getting help, it's important to think about therapy to help cultivate your joy, journaling, self-help books, because joy can be a process when it's authentic. And we don't want masked joy, fake joy. We want it to be authentic.
Absolutely. Karen, how do you get your joy?
I have 3 pillars of joy, and they reside in the area of self-care, self-aware, and self-love. And so if I can water any one of those seeds, and if that's, I'm a big advocate of journaling and tea, as you know, and as Dr. Bryant Davis talks about. It's really a way for me to shut out the outside noise and connect to my inner voice. Self-aware, really getting in touch with what brings me joy. If there's something that's causing me pain or confusion, it's not running from it. It's not doing a spiritual bypass, as Dr. Bryant Davis talked about, but it's actually embracing it, because as the lyric goes, a seed needs darkness and light to grow. So when you're feeling the darkness and the heaviness, realize that something new is growing and germinating, and that if we water it and cultivate it, it can actually bring you to a new level of your greatness, to put it quite frankly. And so those are the things that I kind of do. I want to piggyback, Tammy, on something that J. Anthony Brown was talking about. I think one of the best ways for me to cultivate joy is to find ways that I can give it. I think so often we're so concerned about what we're going on and what's happening with us. So if that's making a phone call to an elderly person or grandparent, if it's reaching out to a neighbor, or just doing something that can add light to someone else's life, can actually help bring joy to you. So I think that's important to bring into the conversation.
Right. I love that. I always find that brings me joy when I'm
exactly
for someone else. It's a sense of feeling. It's just a feeling you get that.
It could be an email, it could be a compliment, encouraging someone. It just gets you out of your stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
right.
It brings community, and a sense of connectedness, which is really what we're all needing, especially right now.
Yeah,
that's good. It's also important. I mean, just something I try to live by, and I don't always get to do it. When you start to think about somebody, call that person right away. Don't put it off till maybe, well, I'm going to call such and such tomorrow. Stop what you're doing and give them a call. Yes. And what COVID has done, because we're so locked up in the house, we have started to call people we normally wouldn't call and wanted to talk to. And the people are surprised to hear from you. Like, hey, you calling me? Yeah, right. I'm lonely too.
Right. I actually started that about a couple of years ago when somebody's on my mind, when I'm thinking about somebody, to just
call them.
Because sometimes you'll get a phone call and you'll be like, I was just thinking about calling you
right.
too. I have a phone call I need to make that I haven't made. My high school theater teacher emailed me. And it was the most endearing email that I have ever received. And I received that email 6 months ago.
Wow.
No, you got to call, Tammi. You got to call.
Or reach out to Miss Shelton yet. I was so overwhelmed by the letter, and I could get emotional thinking about it now. And I just didn't know what I would say when I made her. And so this conversation alone with you all has make that phone call first thing in the morning.
You also know that if you call, I don't know why this happens. If you call somebody by mistake that you don't want to talk to, and you hang up the phone, they will call you right back. They will call you right back because they are just as surprised that you called them.
I mean, I love that you said that. I think COVID in this time of cultivating joy is being present and being here now, like paying attention to what's happening right now. My father, I wanted to call him, and I kept saying I was going to. And I don't want to bring this down, but I do want to, just share this with people. And 4 days later, he no longer was on this earth. Now, had I taken a moment to call and do it in that moment. So that's something that I live with. So I do want to encourage people, if you have something to say to someone, don't wait. That's what this time period is showing us. You know what I mean?
Right.
Dr. Bryant Davis, why is Black joy so important?
Our joy is resistance. Our joy fuels us. The reality is that many people are in touch with their rage, and understandably so and justifiably so. And at the same time, the anger alone will not sustain us. As we've said, this is a marathon and not a sprint. And so to go with my outrage, I need to have joy, that our love is resistance, rest is resistance, and it really defies every racist system and structure. It baffles them about how it is that we are able to pull gospel out of blues. They really want to understand how it is, can we face all of this and then still create new dances and new artwork and new poetry? And so it is a connection to our source and a reminder of who we are.
And you have a podcast as well, right?
Yes, the Homecoming podcast is a mental health podcast I started a year ago to facilitate our journey back to our racism, stress, COVID, all of those things can disconnect us from to iTunes and SoundCloud, all of those platforms. And I would love for you.
I think we're kind of
lost the doctor.
Join us. Mental health, a Black mind matter to Black joy matter.
Okay, we're kind of losing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I gone?
There.
Yeah, you back.
I'm back now. I don't know what happened, but you're back.
It was trying to cancel my joy, but it will not block my joy.
Right.
Canceling your joy. It was like she is not about to have joy talking about the podcast.
Yes.
It's not going to happen. I'm not going to.
In case I missed it, it's the Homecoming podcast, and it's about the journey back home to yourself. And I was saying, just like Black Lives Matter, Black joy matters.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
Dr. Washington, Black joy matters. Does our joy have to have a color to it?
It doesn't have to, but it always does. I mean, nobody finds joy like we do. I mean,
tell me about
it. Like we just talked about, Black people have been through so much since arrival to this country, and yet we still find ways to laugh, and we will take the most horrible situation and make it the funniest meme on the internet, and it'll be something that only we understand. We can make eye contact with somebody we don't even know, and we both get the joke. Like we get it in a way that you just cannot explain. So
explain it.
I'm sure we can find joy that doesn't have to be Black, but that's where we find our comfort.
I agree with you. It is a sense of Black joy, because if you work in an office where you're surrounded by quote unquote people who are not like you, and you have bonded with somebody that's Black, you can see when the BS is coming your way. You can see it, you can feel it. And not only can you see it, the person that's sitting across in the other cubicle, they can see it. And you can look and give them that look, and then, here it comes. You ain't got to say a word. All you got to do is, here it comes.
So we got a tweet that came in from one of our soulmates, and it says, let's see, this is from Daniel Kyrie. Daniel Kyrie tweeted, Black joy is part of the revolution.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. We got to amplify what we want. So let's amplify that. The Black joy is the revolution, and it is being televised and Zoomified and all of it. So let's go there. I love that.
And I think it's important because it keeps us from being just reactionary. So we are much more than a response to racism. Like we have an identity that is not defined or limited by that. And those things are the source of our joy.
Yes. Dr. Washington, what would you tell someone who's on the front lines protesting?
As a physician right now, I'm telling them, be careful. Like, don't forget that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So, being a physician, every time I see those pictures, I'm always looking to see how many people are wearing masks, how close are they together? Yes, being outside is a little safer, but do not forget, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. Just because everything else is going on, do not forget. So I'm telling them to not forget that we're in the middle of a pandemic and to find time to take rest. It is okay to step back. Everybody's in this in different ways. And for those who are out there pounding the pavement, going to the protests, organizing, and just working hard for the movement, that's great. But you have to rest, because we've said multiple times, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Find time to rest. The revolution will move forward if you take a nap. It's okay. So just find time to step back. It's going to be all right.